All right, well, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We are excited to be here with you in this week's webinar, Ready, Set, Go, Creating Interactive Reviews. Today, we're going to feature Sarah Merritt McCoy, who's a professional development specialist from Texas. My name is Sarah Stark, I'm a professional development specialist from Pennsylvania. We are both here today to talk about how you can create and share some interactive reviews for your students. We encourage participation. If you have any questions as we are going along, please ask those in the chat box during the presentation, and we will either integrate them into the flow or answer them right away in the chat. We'll also be sharing some resources in the chat for you to take as a takeaway from today's webinar. At the end, we will also provide you to a link to a brief feedback survey, and then you'll be able to grab your PD certificate for your time with us today. All right, so at this point, I'm going to turn things over to the other Sarah here so that we can dive into today's webinar, Ready, Set, Go, Creating Interactive Reviews. So let's build together.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and thank everyone for joining us today. Like Sarah said, we are super excited that you've joined us, and we're hoping that you get some really great tips for building interactive reviews. Sarah's going to go ahead and drop our contact information in the chat. So if you ever need to reach out to us for anything along your Lumio journey, please feel free to do so. Also in the chat, we would love to know and we'd love to hear from y'all. What grade level and subject do you teach? And what are some ways that you currently review with your students? So we're going to give you about 30 seconds to respond to the chat so we can get a little read of who is here with us today.
All right, I love that. Thanks, Sarah. I can also see we have people coming from lots of different areas. So very exciting that we're all here together today, coming from different parts of the country and all over the world. So very exciting. Feel free to add in the chat if you teach a specific grade level or content area, maybe some of your creative ideas of ways that you review content with your students. I know I'm looking forward to learning from Sarah today. And maybe you work with teachers, so you're helping teachers build Lumio activities that they might be using with their students or building different reviews. Oh, wonderful. We have some all kinds of different roles that we're sharing there in the chat. So thanks, everyone. Welcome. It's very exciting.
Good. I see all the way from third grade. I see some tech specialists, someone teaching chemistry. Fourth grade. Okay, wonderful. So our goal today is to help you use Lumio to create interactive reviews that are going to help you engage your students and highlight their learning. So as we're building today, I really want you to pay special attention to what type of activities we're building, and really reflect and think about how you can use similar activities for whatever content or grade level you teach. Because as I said, we have people from elementary school all the way to high school. So really just constantly reflect, how could you see yourself using some similar activities? So let's go ahead and get ready to vote to see what type of activities we want to build today. So we're going to have 3 different options for the type of review that you want to see us build live. So are you interested in seeing a multiple answer review built live where students have to choose more than one right answer out of a list of possible answers? Are you hoping to see an open-ended review where students have to give a written explanation to demonstrate their understanding? Or are you most interested in how Lumio can help you create a drag and drop review where students have to evaluate a number of choices and drag them to the appropriate area? So I see these votes are already coming in. We'll give you a few more seconds to see which one you are most interested in building today.
Yeah, looks like that drag and drop is taking the lead here.
Yeah.
So that is exciting. Feel free to hop into that poll. Carolyn, I agree. It is tough to decide. Lots of different ways that you can create reviews for students, different question types, different ways to present the information, have students, show what they know. So feel free, go ahead and add to the poll there. Again, it looks like that drag and drop is taking the lead there. But we'll just keep that open for another moment.
Yeah, I do. I mean, all of Lumio has amazing ways to build all of these different type reviews. So it is it's really hard to decide. But that drag and drop, like you said, is really leading the charge there, and that's exciting because I think Lumio has fantastic features to support that type of review.
All right, I think we have a clear winner here, so I'll go
Yep.
ahead and end the poll. So we will watch as Sarah builds the drag and drop example. Now I will tell you, kind of piggyback on a great question that came into the chat. Don't worry, before we leave you today, we are going to share this example that Sarah's building. We'll share this file link with you, but then she is also going to highlight some other ways that you can build reviews, and that there are lots of other ready-made examples in our Lumio library. So we'll be sure to share all of that with you today.
Yep, perfectly said, Sarah. Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to jump into our build time and show you two different drag and drop types of reviews that you can use in your classroom, or if you support teachers, you can help teachers use in their classroom as well. So I'm going to go ahead and end my lesson. And I'm heading on over right here to my Lumio dashboard. So if you are interested in following along with me and building alongside with me, I encourage you to go ahead and navigate to Lumio by going to lum.io and signing in with your Google or Microsoft email. Or if it's easier for you to grab that direct link, Sarah has just dropped it in the chat if you want to click and log in there as well. So I'm going to give everybody, if you want to follow along, just a few seconds to navigate to that Lumio dashboard. Now, while you're navigating to that Lumio dashboard, I do want to highlight for you, we're going to be building in my library today. I'm going to show you how you can create things from scratch and create some really awesome reviews. But like Sarah mentioned, there is that Lumio library, and I'm going to go ahead and navigate over to this Lumio library because there's tons of pre-made resources already available for you here today. Some that I definitely want to highlight is in this featured tab at the top. When I go to the featured tab and I click see more, I'm going to scroll down a little because I see that there's these three really golden ones right here for test taking strategies that you can share with your students, as well as some review day activities that you can explore with your students as well. So after our time today, you're going to have at least two built with me today, but you can always go to that Lumio library and look at some of the other pre-made activities that we have in there. So I wanted to show you guys that before I forgot. So like Sarah said, it's in that featured section of the Lumio library, but here I am. I've toggled back over to my library. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start my new file so I can start building my review. So to do so, I'm going to go over here to this new button because I'm creating a new file. And there are tons of different options here that you can go to in order to create a review. I think oftentimes our most popular, and I know why, are these game-based activities. There's 12 game-based templates in here that are fantastic for any type of review. And as you click through them, it goes you through this really helpful wizard or template asking you questions in order to help you build your reviews. So I really encourage the use of these game-based activities. Very easy, very user-friendly. So I'm actually not going to go over them today. I'm going to show you how you can get a little bit more creative with your reviews on top of these game-based activities. So I'm going to go
I'll
ahead and go
definitely
back.
echo that, Sarah. All of those
Yeah.
game-based activities are great ways to build, whether it's a collaborative review like a monster quiz, or if you build some independent reviews. I love to be able to use text and images and use some of that content that's very specific to what I need to review with my students. So these games are definitely a great place to start.
Yeah, definitely. And I say, if you know how to use those games, keep using them. If you haven't done so yet, I really encourage you to check them out. That's not what we're going to be going over today, but it is a prime spot for good review. So I'm going to go ahead and go back. And the other place I'm going to highlight is we've got this questioning and reflection area. This is also a fantastic place if you're looking for a place to start with reviews. And so you can see that we have some shouted out and response activities, as well as several pre-made handouts that are totally editable and customizable that are also really great for anyone that is trying to build a review. Sarah, do you want to add anything else here about these reflections?
Well, I'll say, we're not building one of those open-ended question examples, but this is definitely where I would start if I wanted to build out some ways for my students to answer those open-ended questions. These exit tickets really just open the door to those possibilities for students.
Yeah, I totally agree. If I was doing open-ended and if that's the one we had one out in the poll, I would definitely do either this 1 minute paper or how would you explain what you've learned? Because I could change that text and I can make that an open-ended question. That's a great point that you made there. So great handout activities here. But again, that's not what we're building today. We just wanted to highlight those for you. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you one more time how I got here really quickly. So here's my Lumio dashboard and I've clicked new. And I've got this awesome toolkit. So what I'm going to do here today is I'm going to show you how I use graphic organizers to create really interactive reviews. So I'm going to go over here to our graphic organizers. And you can see we have a whole host of graphic organizers that you can turn into handouts for your students and make them drag and drop reviews. For today, I'm going to scroll down, scroll too far, to one of my favorites here, this content mapping. So I'm going to click this. And you'll notice that it is going to spit out that beautiful graphic organizer for me right onto my page. I didn't have to open up a new tab and go to Google and try to find it. It's already here for me right there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some text here that I want my students to be able to drag and drop. And so for our example today, I'm going to do a social studies review. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to this A in order to add my text box, and I'm going to add my title. Now, my title for this one is real simple. This is going to be my drag and drop review for social studies. Now, just because my content that I'm doing today is for social studies doesn't mean that that is what you have to use this for. You use this for whatever you teach, whatever grade level, whatever type of content. But I have my title here, and now I'm going to make it a little bit larger. And here we go. Now in this box right here, in this bottom box, I'm going to go ahead and put my instructions. So I'm going to go back over here to the text box and I would add my instructions in this box. And those instructions could be something like, determine which statement describes each individual's, I can spell, contribution to the American Revolution, because that's what I'm talking about with my students, and that's something that I want them to reflect on. You'll notice that my text box is a little too big, so I can double click this here, and I'm going to take this blue dot and drag it and resize it to whatever I need it to be. I also might highlight my text, and maybe it's something that I want to be centered. I can make it bold. I can change the text size, all of the different features that you might want to do in order to customize that text. Then I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to tell them to drag the answers to the correct box. Okay. And I'm going to pick this up and just move it around. So now in this top box up here, this is where I might put in the different types of statements that I want my students to reflect on. Now, something that I want to show you is I have actually done this on a handout with my students in the past. So here's a handout that I might have done with my students, but now I'm able to very quickly copy and paste it into my Lumio. So I know that I want them to review Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Thomas Paine, and Crispus Attucks. And I have my 4 different statements right here. So I can either type those in directly onto Lumio, or I can save myself a lot of time with resources I already have. And I'm able to copy and paste each of these statements as well, because oftentimes we have handouts or we have reviews that we've been using. So I'm going to go over here back to this text box. I'm going to add it here, and I might go ahead and paste that statement that I want students to drag and drop. Now, again, text is a little bit large, so I'm going to resize it. I might make this font smaller because I know that I'm going to be putting in 4 different statements. And I'm going to do one text box for each of the different statements. And so while I'm copying and pasting all of these statements, Sarah, is there anything that you want to add about this workflow?
Yeah. So as you were showing, maybe this existing resource that you already have, Sarah, it's kind of making me think I really like how now on this graphic organizer, we just provide that really focused opportunity for students to practice this one skill. I may have a lot of information on a document that previously I've used with students, but I like how we're really just able to focus our students' attention on this one question type and this one concept here, and it's nicely laid out for them in the graphic organizer.
Yes, exactly. And something else that I wanted to point out is that I've put a lot of text here, but you can see on my original document that I had pictures that I wanted my students to associate with these folks as well. So I can do the exact same thing on my graphic organizer here. So in these 4 boxes around the edge, that's where I'm going to actually put the names of the people that I want them to drag these statements to. And so to do so, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start off with Thomas Jefferson here. He's going to be in this box. Now, I want a picture of Thomas Jefferson. So in order to add that, I'm going to go to this little icon here along the top where we've got the heart, plus sign, photo, and circle. So I've clicked that. And I'm going to go to this second one right here where I'm going to add in a picture. And what I love here is I didn't have to open a new tab to Google this picture and copy and paste it. This is going to do a Bing Safe Search immediately in Lumio. So all of it is streamlined in one place. So I'm going to go ahead and find a picture of Thomas Jefferson. And look, all of these fantastic pictures come up. So let's do this one. So I'm going to double click it. And now it is on my graphic organizer, and I'm going to resize this so there's enough room for students to drag in the statement that they need.
Yeah, and I think that's great, Sarah, showing where to find those images. Also, when you popped into that gallery, the shapes and lines really, stick out to me as well. Because if I'm creating a drag and drop activity for my students, maybe I want them to drag the circle to a certain concept or drag the star. Maybe they're annotating on some text, and that's how I'm using that drag and drop concept. So I can really just embed whichever symbols, images, and text that I need. The other thing is for our, shout out to our science and math teachers. You could also add equations to the page for students to drag and drop, or parts of equations. So we do have that equation editor in our toolbar as well that Sarah can highlight for us before we leave, because I know reviewing some of those science and math concepts is going to be really important as well.
Yeah, exactly. And like Sarah said, just, while we're on the topic, I have added in that text here. I've gone over here and we've talked about the shapes and lines and pictures, but that equation editor is right there in the middle. So for those science and math folks, I could click that equation editor. And now, once I've selected it and click onto my screen, you can see all of the different types of symbols and ways that I can add those specific math and science information onto the screen. Perfect. Okay, now I'm going to add this last picture really quickly. Okay. Now, another thing that I will do oftentimes is I've been clicking the text box to add all of these different names, but sometimes what I might do, if I like the size of this text and I like the format and I like how everything's done here, I can click this and go to this drop-down menu, and then I can just duplicate it and drag it over here. And maybe I'll then take that text and change it to George Washington and whatever else I might need. I also can use some of my hotkeys. So if you're one of the people that you can select it and you can Control C in order to copy it, and Control V in order to paste it. So all of those same keys and stuff that you would use in any other application are still applicable here.
That's awesome. And as you're finishing out some of the details on this page, I don't think we've mentioned yet the ability to add that instructional audio to this page. So we have a bit of text on here. So just depending on my students, I might want to add the directions in an audio format, or I might want to give them that extra open-ended question. So now we're layering on those different ways for students to review this concept. So right up in that corner, we can use that audio feature.
Yeah, and I love that audio feature, especially this is a review. So this is something students might be working on or studying at home, and that instructional audio is going to be really helpful if they're not in the class with the teacher. That's a great point. Now, this looks great, but there's a few other things that I have to do, because the only thing that I want my students dragging are these sentences right here. as I have it set up right now, students can drag anything. So what I'm going to want to do is I want to lock down the material that I don't want them to interfere with, or I don't want them to move. So for instance, I don't want them to move this picture or this text right here. So in order to do so, I'm going to click it. Again, I'm going to go back to that drop down menu where I previously duplicated, and I've got the option to lock it. So now when my students are working on this drag and drop, they can't move that picture, and now my whole handout isn't going to get all messed up. Another really quick tip if you're looking to save time is if you have multiple things to lock, you can click it, and as you're holding down Shift, you can select all of the things that you want to lock into place. That's all the stuff I want to lock. And when I hit one of these drop down menus and hit lock, you'll notice that all of them are now locked into place. Now, let's say that I accidentally lock one of these down, right? And now students can't move it. That's okay. Super easy to unlock it. You're just going to go ahead and click this lock function, and you have the ability to unlock it. Now, another really great tip is if you use any of your hotkeys and you do a control or a command A, it's going to highlight everything that's currently unlocked. So you'll see when I do the hotkeys right there, these 4 things have a box around them, which means these 4 things are the only thing that can be moved. And so now when students are ready to do this review, they're going to be able to drag these statements to the correct box.
And then I think one thing I'll mention here, Sarah, which you might be mentioning later too, but any one of those statements, we could set those to infinite cloners. So maybe the statements are applicable to more than one of these historical figures or to whichever concept I'm reviewing with students. Mm-hmm. And so we can use that infinite cloner option so students could drag and drop as many as they need.
Yeah, perfect example. And to do that, and I'll show you the difference here. Again, I'm going to click and go back to this arrow. We duplicated, we've locked it, but you'll see right above there's an infinite cloner. So if this statement applied to all 4 of these people, you'll notice that as students drag it, there's an infinite number of that statement there. And you know it's infinitely cloned because it has that infinity sign. That's different than just a regular unlocked textbook that when I drag, you'll notice that it doesn't still remain there. So that would be the difference between something that's infinitely cloned and something that's not. Now, the last thing that I'll mention on this page really quickly is that right now I've made this beautiful review, and you'll notice at the bottom it says that this page is view only on student devices. So that means that we've done this great review, we've made it draggable, we've locked certain text, but students can't do anything with it. So in order to actually make this interactive for students, you're going to need to work a little magic. And why I say that is you're going to go to this magic wand right up here in the top right-hand corner. And when you click that, you have the opportunity to convert this to an individual handout where every student will have their own copy, a group workspace if you want students to work in groups, or a whole class whiteboard if you want everybody on the class to be working on this. Now, for this specific activity, I would probably make it an individual handout. So when I click that, now you can say that this page is an individual activity on student devices, and students are going to be able to work on this drag and drop opportunity on their own device. And I can even preview it and see what students will see on their end. So now we have our first beautiful drag and drop exercise. Sarah, anything to add?
Yeah, we had a great question coming into the chat about, can this graphic organizer be added into any other lesson? So definitely, if you have a Lumio lesson already and you wanted to add this example, you can hit that plus sign and add any of the graphic organizers into your lesson. But also what I'll say is that there's also that amazing import and combine button at the top. So if we share this, we're going to share this example with you today. And if you save it to your Lumio library, you could fold that into any lesson you already have. Or if you have a graphic organizer already and you have it saved, say on a PDF or in a Google file or a PowerPoint, you can just bring that on into any lesson.
Yeah, perfect. Great question. And like she said, after I've made this, I can import it in from my library and I can use it in multiple lessons. Wonderful. Now, Sarah, do we have time for one more, or is it something that I should show how to import and show them what it would look like?
I think it'd be great to show how to import the next example, and we'll share out the finished example with everyone.
Sounds great. So this is actually a perfect segue. So let's say I do have another drag and drop that I want to show, and I've already made it on another lesson. I might go ahead and go over here to import resource, and it's something that I've already made in my Lumio library. So I'm going to hit my library, and you'll notice everything that I have in my Lumio library is showing up here. So I'm going to go to the file that I already had, and you can see it's giving me the option. Do I want to select all of the pages and bring them in, or just a specific one? I just want to show you a specific one. So I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to select the handout that I want to share. And I'm going to hit add. So now what this is doing is it's taking a drag and drop activity that I had in a different file, and it's pulling it in to the current file that I have. So here, when I go to preview, you can see that there is another opportunity for a drag and drop here, where I've imported a picture that I've had, and now I've given my students a word bank that maybe I want them to drag the specific parts to. So here's another way that you can do drag and drop in Lumio as well.
Awesome. Now we have an amazing question that kind of segues into the next piece that we can show. Once you've created this review for students, how do students connect? And then how can you share this with students to complete?
Perfect question. So let's say I'm good to go. I have my social studies and science review. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to call this review so it doesn't get lost. And I'm going to click finish editing. So if I am about to go ahead and connect students to my live lesson, what I would do is I'm going to go here. I'm back on my library, and I'm going to click start. When I click start, I want to go ahead and get my students connected. And you can see right here on my people icon that I have 0 students connected. But I'm going to click that people icon. And here's my class ID up here at the top to get students connected. Now it's a little tiny. Students might not be able to see that. So I can give this pop-out box right here, and it gives students the instructions for how to join my lesson live. They would go to hellosmart.com, log in with their student email, and enter in my class ID if I wanted them to join a live session. Anything to add, Sarah?
No, I think that's great. And we can also, if we share how to connect students directly as well with a share link for those outside of class reviews.
Yes, exactly. So go ahead and end my lesson here again. Here's where I started my lesson, and I've got my 3 dots here in the right bottom corner right there. When I click those 3 dots, you can see that I have the option to share the link. When I click share link, I can share my link directly with other teachers if I want them to add it to their Lumio library, or I can share an asynchronous copy right here with my students, and I can add it to my LMS. So that way students can access an asynchronous copy of the review as well. What other questions did we have?
Oh, so another great question coming in. If I wanted to assign the lesson to a certain group of students, I think my suggestion there would be in your learning management system, however you assign those specific assignments to maybe a particular subset of students. So you might choose certain students to assign that task to. You would just copy this link and then put it in that copy of your assignment.
Yep. I love that. I love that differentiation, Melanie. That's awesome.
Awesome. Love that. All right. So I know Sarah's going to probably show us a few more things to wind down our time, but in the chat, I will be placing a few very important links for everyone. So the first link that you will notice, you will actually grab that share link so that you can save a copy of this wonderful drag and drop activity that Sarah created for us. So thank you so much, Sarah, for creating this review. Looks like we are now ready to try a few things. So what are we ready to try today?
Yeah, so if you're ready to try out your own drag and drop, how we did that is we went to Lumio and we started a new file by clicking that new button. And then we went through and we edited some information in the graphic organizer, locked down some text, infinitely cloned others, and we made it interactive for students by turning it into that individual handout by clicking that wand. Now, if that's a lot for you and you're like, "Ooh, I'm not ready for that yet," don't worry. Our Lumio library, like we showed you, has some really fantastic options in that featured section. So if you go to the Lumio library, go to featured, you can see some test taking strategies that are already made for you there. And then we just ask, let us know how it's going. Share out on social media with the hashtag #GoLumio to show us some of the wonderful things that you're building for your students. And then again, Sarah shared some of those Lumio resources in the chat. So do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Oh, yes. So we have some great resources for you as a takeaway from today's session. So we have our instructional resources. It'll take you to our Learn Lumio page. If you're looking for your getting started guide, as well as some instructional resources to take away, to dive a little bit further on that application of using Lumio to share out with your colleagues. Feel free to follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel, more bite-sized videos for you to review. We would encourage you, if you are interested in connecting with our global community, so just a shout out right now to our Smart and Lumio ambassadors. So thank you to anyone who's a part of the ambassador community who's with us today. But if you're interested in joining that community, they're active, global community, feel free to learn more. And then, hey, join us for another Ready, Set, Smart webinar. We have a whole schedule for the spring for you. I'm going to place in the chat just one last link here. This will take you to, let me grab this link real quick. So we'll take you to our survey. Please click on the link, and you'll just provide us with a little feedback from today's session. So we really, really appreciate that. The PD certificate is generated after you have completed the survey, and then you will copy and paste the link into a web browser in order to download your unique certificate. So we will stay on here for another moment or two. Please make sure you've grabbed some of those resource links, grabbed your copy of the file. You will also receive a follow-up email that will include a recording of today's session. So you have that also as a takeaway. We'll just take a peek in and see if there are any more questions that we can answer as we're finishing up. But if not, thank you all so much for joining our Ready, Set, Go session today with the Sarahs. We have shared out that file as well as some of those resources. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And please make sure that you have all those links, or let us know if you need the links again.
Yes, thank you all so much. And I want to give a shout out here. Christine's highlighting the ambassador community, and I see Sheila's really celebrating that Lumio library. So I really appreciate you guys for those testimonies. And like Sarah said, thank you so much for joining the Sarahs. Thanks so much, Carolyn. Appreciate you. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Crystal. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.